Good evening, and it's Tuesday evening here, and you're very welcome to the Kerry Basketball Show, brought to you by Kerry Sports Hub here in the Kingdom of Kerry. And over the next hour and a few minutes, we'll be discussing everything there is about basketball in this county in the last 2 weeks, and there's certainly an awful lot to talk to. On tonight's show, delighted that we are going to be joined by Johnny Quaid of the Kingdom Wheelblasters. So all those people that are big fans of wheelchair basketball, we get a very interesting insight into what goes on there. We also talk to the legend of the Three Tigers himself, Ricardo Leonard, the quiet man, who is the word legend long before it was ever used. And we get to talk to him for a good 10 minutes about his time inside in those wonderful jerseys of the Three Tigers. And we also talk to two other men, Adrian Flynn, he is the new St. Paul's Director of Coaching, and another man making his mark in coaching in the Basketball Ireland Southwest Boys under 14 is the Killarney Cougars head coach, Ignis, and we'll talk to him as well after his training. Now, the one big story all over the news and all over the county, and indeed all over every part of basketball since last Thursday evening, is the effect of the new guidelines having on underage players, particularly with the COVID restrictions coming in, which basically means that an awful lot of clubs and children and parents are in huge doubt whether basketball will be played for them. There certainly won't be any games for underage all the way down under 12, and other ages have to be vaccinated. So we decided we'd have to catch up with somebody to discuss this further. And we spoke last night to John Dowling, chairman of Tralee Imperials in Tralee, one of the biggest clubs there. And we spoke about the devastating effect that this has and will have on basketball in Kerry, and indeed the greater surrounds as well.
You could understand it to a certain extent, even though there was frustration that, Gaelic games and all that were going on, and indoor sports weren't. Look, you could see that, and I know clubs then got themselves off the ground during the summer and went outdoors and adapted in the Great Irish Outdoors. But we're just after paying registration, we're just after paying fees to Basketball Ireland, we're just after registering the clubs as they all have. And we're just getting off the ground. County boards starting their leagues, tournaments starting, National Under-18 Cup next weekend, and then bang, they get hit with this on Thursday night that suddenly now, if you're not vaccinated, you're not going into a hall. And it's funny because my reading of it is you can still continue to train a coach unvaccinated or a player unvaccinated, but they can't then go to the game, which, would boggle the mind as to why that, where that NEF advice or advice, where that's coming from. And the real question I suppose I have is, how is that going to help the numbers increasing in the hospital when the nightclubs are open and the pubs are open and everything else is open? And that's no disrespect to them. They've had a hard yard as well. They need to be open now. That's my view on it. But I don't understand how keeping a 16-year-old from playing a basketball game on a Tuesday night in the middle of the winter, when it might be his or her only sport, is going to help flatten the curve or whatever the case may be. That's where the mind you just can't figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And I think to be safe to say, John, I mean, this really came out of the blue because, like you said, clubs are slowly going back. I know from talking to a lot of clubs, I mean, even at 10 and 12, most mentors and volunteers were even slow to go back, but they have got back, and they're all in various different stages of either a couple of trainings or some have a couple of matches kind of rearranged and the whole lot. But I mean, nobody really saw this on the cards at all, did they?
No, this was, look, we were led to believe, we were all moving the 22nd of October, we were moving towards, that's just our sport is back. I suppose maybe people might say we would have been playing juvenile games behind closed doors, whatever, to minimize what's in the halls. But there was never anything that, like, even when we had no vaccine, there was never, it was never deemed that anybody could or couldn't play. Then when people started getting vaccinated, the older age group, when we started getting back, it was never envisaged that you would have to be vaccinated to play sport. Mm-hmm. That was never, nobody saw that coming. Whatever about the pods of 6 for unvaccinated people, that had been there previously, we'd understood that. Whatever about those sort of things. But to be vaccinated as a 15-year-old to play basketball or to play or do judo or anything indoors is just you can't. I mean, I'm a school teacher. I'm inside in school with 30 kids. They're out in the yard. They're in PE doing basketball, and they can't then move from there to 6 o'clock in the evening, oftentimes in the same gym, and play a basketball game if they're unvaccinated. I mean, like, where do you start?
Yeah, and of course, I suppose the whole vaccinating is that it's regarded as there's no under 12 in the whole country vaccinated. I mean, it isn't their fault that they either are or they aren't. I mean, they don't have choice. So that, by reading this, rules that age group completely off the board. Going back to, we'll say, Tralee Imperials, how will it affect you as a club? I presume, like all clubs, you were back training, you were all getting prepared and ready to go. What has the feeling been within the club, particularly with parents? I mean, since we started this, I mean, we're getting a lot of kind of angry phone calls about, you know, that they've paid €100 and now they can't play sport, and they say, look, my Johnny can go off down to the local soccer club and he can play soccer, or he can play football, or he can do anything outdoors. I mean, how does it affect the spirit within your own club when people will say that to you?
Well, I suppose when everyone was delighted to get back, and there was a big buzz around it. In the last 3 days, and I'm sure it's the same in all the clubs, it's just disbelief. You know, those age groups at under 12, especially our under 12 boys and under 12 girls, like, they're just, because they're ready to play games now. They've had 2 years without games, and they're watching the Warriors and St. Paul's and Cougars and Killarney, everybody, you know, they're ready to play basketball games. And like you said, we've seen a direct drop off already at under 12 level straight away. Parents are like, we're gonna go play soccer, rugby, whatever's on this time of year. So I mean, and the coaches haven't been out for a year and a half, and like, we're struggling to keep we're struggling to get them all back. We haven't got some back. We've got not everybody. We've often had coaches taking 2 and 3 teams just to keep the ship afloat, and then, you know, you'll wonder what's the point in training if, you know, you're training in pods of 6 and 4 your players then can't go to the game next week against St. Paul's. Like, I mean, it's bad at the moment, and everything is over Zoom then, because we can't, you know, people don't want to really interact besides going into the hall, so you're taking phone calls after phone calls. But there is a huge outcry of just disbelief, and I suppose what I'm also hearing on the ground is a small sense among vaccinated people that, you know, the show must go on. And for me, that's just you know, immoral. Like, we can't. When is enough enough? And I keep telling these people, like, that, you know, if we say, oh yeah, look, we'll move on now and we'll discriminate against the unvaccinated, you know, tough to them, and then the numbers start to increase more, and Basketball Ireland and their basketball community haven't kicked back a little bit, what's going to happen next? They're going to have everyone in pods of 6. Then they're going to shut people down again. So at a point, enough has to be enough. And for me, this is the point where we need to galvanize ourselves together as a group and as a community and say, look, enough is enough here now. I mean, we were told when 80% of the population were vaccinated, we were home and host. We now have 300,000 people not vaccinated. I mean, what do they want? To squeeze out these few 15 and 16-year-olds, get them, if we get to 100%, is that what we have to get to know before we're allowed to move on with our lives? So, I mean, that's, as you can tell from how animated I am, that's coming from behind me, from everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And people sort of understand the passion as well, because, I mean, I suppose not unlike every sport, you know, the volunteers are the front line. They put the whole lot into it. And I suppose in many instances, unfairly, they're getting to answer these questions now. Why isn't this happening, when there probably isn't a whole pile of light coming down from maybe the author either? One bit of light at the moment anyway is there has been, I suppose, obviously a few people galvanising in different ways. The Lawyers for Justice Ireland, they've sent a letter, obviously, to Sports Ireland at the moment, and they're under Article 2 of the UN Constitution, the right of the child states, and it's actually that basically that the present convention teach child within their jurisdiction without discrimination of any kind, irrespective of a child or parent's legal guardian, race, colour, sex, language, religion, political opinion, national, ethnic or social origin. disability, the whole that. So basically, even Article 2, I suppose, of the highest one is the human thing. I mean, this would fly in contrary to that. Now, that might be a lawyer's perspective, might be different, but for the man on the street, I mean, this is discrimination. This is one sport that has said, listen, lads, just close your door and clear off, whereas the other sports can continue on. And it really isn't good enough, is it, John?
No, it's absolutely not. I mean, like, you're talking about children who might not have the choice, whose parents just might not want to get them vaccinated at 13 or 14 for whatever reasons. I mean, is that what we're trying to do? Force them to get vaccinated? But it's not right on any level of any kind. And you know, I'm obviously a school teacher, and you see bullying. I can see incidences here where kids are going to be bullied within pods of 6. Or who is the unvaccinated one? You're going to have vaccinated parents. You know, it's just opening up a can of worms that nobody on the ground should have to deal with in a voluntary basis. And I can see huge problems coming down the track, let alone those under 12s who haven't ever played a basketball game properly, besides a few blitzes and stuff 2 years ago, let alone that, but just the whole feeling among the community, among certain players. I mean, if I have an under 14 boys team training fully because they're all fully vaccinated, of which we can't even ask them if they're vaccinated, that's another point. But I have the under 14 girls team who have 2 unvaccinated kids in pods of 6. The first thing that's going to happen is I'm going to get a phone call from the girls' parents going, well, why are the boys training and we're not? Oh, well, then there's someone. Well, why are our vaccinated kids being discriminated against because the unvaccinated are there? It goes on and on and on.
Yeah. It's all stuff really that, you know, as a sports administrator and a coach, you really don't want to deal with. I mean, it's a case that the kids come, they want to play, they want to train, but they also want games. And basketball is kind of a game that, while okay, the games do be competitive, but at the end you have 5 kids playing together. The teamwork is hugely important. You can only do so much in training anyway, and most parents aren't going to give you €100 and say, John, train my child in a group of 6 here for the rest of the all the way to March. They want to play games, and you know, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to other sports where, you know, they might drop him down to the rugby club on Sunday morning and say, listen, can you take my son? He was playing basketball, but, you know, he can play this outdoors. There's no need for COVID vaccine certs or proof or anything. And it really leaves the door open for basketball to kind of fall behind, and it has fallen behind, obviously, with the whole 18 months that they weren't there. So what in your opinion realistically needs to be done to fight this? Where does this need to go? Obviously it needs to be reversed or turned or some sort of sense made of it. Is there a big groundswell within clubs across the country? I mean, in Northern Ireland, like we were talking off air about the under 18 championships and the leagues, there's big question marks over that as well.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, look, throughout this whole pandemic, you know, it's great. Look, I put stuff up on Twitter and people put stuff up on social media. That only goes so far. I mean, at the end of the day, if anything is going to get done, it's going to get done by empowered people and by people galvanizing together. So for me, it's very clear. Everybody has politicians in their area. Everybody has local politicians, and everybody has politicians up in Dublin. We need to be ringing down the phone of those politicians, because at the end of the day, Sport Ireland are taking their direction from the government indirectly through NEFIT. So this is a galvanizing of people who are going to ring this politician, that politician, and continue to ring and don't stop ringing until such time as it gets sorted out. There is no scientific, logical reason for stopping 16-year-olds playing basketball who are unvaccinated. It's not going to bring down the numbers on a huge scale. If you look at what they're losing from what you're gaining on the other end, for me, it's just the easy fix to shut them down there. And if you look at what basketball have had to do, we've kind of just took it on the chin for the last year and a half. And so they'll keep giving it you on the chin, in my view. So I think politicians need to be phoned, then letters need to go. And I'm just hoping, and I think they are, I think that Basketball Ireland this time are taking more of an aggressive approach. And an aggressive in the right way. I mean, like, you know, asking for clear expectations. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't get into the Dáil floor, it'll probably fall on deaf ears. So for me, you cover all the Super League clubs and men's and women's and National League clubs. Kerry Basketball is at a height now that it probably never was at, with regards to number of clubs playing. And that is down to the hard work of those clubs. That will fall on the ground if the children aren't playing basketball. They aren't coming to the basketball games because they've stopped playing basketball and they're gone to the soccer games instead. And it'll also fall down on a level where in a couple of years' time, they won't be coming through. The 15 or 16-year-old now sitting in St. Brendan's or Tralee Imperial's basketball clubs in Tralee, I was looking at this going, there might be no basketball games here again. I'm gone here, man. I'm just going to play football. And I'm going to play, and that he might have been the next person to replace, your player on your Super League team. And that's the real mass. That's a huge effect. You look at the Irish teams as well. It's going to affect the Irish team. What happens if an unvaccinated kid can go play with his Irish team and train, but then can't come back to his club because he's unvaccinated? Like, how's he going to get better? Like, it's just it's bonkers stuff.
The green
so
thing.
It
needs
to get to the doll. Like, it has to get there. It has to get all the way up the line. Otherwise, they'll just keep kicking the touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, John, we'll certainly keep an eye on it. Hopefully, it doesn't get kicked too far down the line to touch. It certainly needs to be dealt with, particularly probably in the next couple of weeks, John. Because I mean, if this isn't dealt with in the next month or two, maybe the appetite for clubs to kind of get going then either the other side of January or February, it might even be there. And it's like you said, you can't really kind of expect kids to wait a bit longer. I mean, a year out of a 12-year-old is a long time compared to a person like ourselves, maybe. But I mean, yeah.
As I said, my fear, Donal, is that the Kerry County Basketball Board start putting on county leagues for under 14, 16, 18, the Cork, the Dublin, they all start playing basketball while kids are being discriminated against, and then the show just keeps going on until such time as the government decide, hold on a second, that's an indoor sport again. I don't care if they're vaccinated. Just shut that down.
Yeah,
that's my fear. We have written a letter to the county board asking them not to start competitions here because we're the ones that are going to have to tell kids they can't play, and also it's going to feed into the whole take it on the chin and move on with it.
Yeah.
That has to, there has to be a shutdown now where people are just saying, no, enough is enough. Let us play as normal. Let every kid play and not be discriminated against as normal, or we're going to basically take to the streets and we're going to go and ring our politicians. Are going to keep going up and let's get sorted.
Of Tralee Imperials, and I suppose in fairness, it's a situation that every chairperson of every club around the county is faced with, and we'll certainly watch that for the next couple of days. And I suppose it's a story that's going to run. It's a story already that's hit national, and I suppose we just have to sit and watch and see how it plays out. Hopefully it'll play out positively, and under 12 will certainly get back to play games, because in fairness, John did point out a lot of these haven't played any game, having set out for the last year and a half as well during the whole COVID thing. So we'll just watch and see. Now, there was plenty of show from their first two outings. Team 360 Financial Killarney were looking to put a solid full game together when they faced Mike Cullen at the Killarney Sports Complex in round 3. Declan Wallside had shown plenty promise in both their defeats to Tralee and Ballincollig, but needed now to convert that to wins. A win they did, with a well-deserved 16-point win over the Galway side. Once again, it was Alan Thomas who sparkled throughout with this classy 2, but there was plenty help too from Xavier Alonso and Jeremy Medina. But despite this, it was the away side that led 25-24 at the end of the first quarter. Both sides worked hard in the second quarter with defences giving little away. However, Medina used his height well for this 2-pointer. While Alan Thomas was on his way to a 26-point game high, finishing this patient team move. Despite this, Grant Olsen kept Mike Cullen well in the game. Simon Francis worked hard for this winning score, winning his own rebound and collecting a much needed free, much to the amusement of Kyle Cunningham. There were a few minutes of concern for Declan Wall's charges, as Mike Cullen had pushed out to a 34-26 lead midway through the second, but a 17-6 push in the latter stages for the home side saw them narrowly ahead 45-43. This one-pointer by Francis proving vital. Clarkin pushed ahead in the third 71-63 as Mike Cullen's shooting began to desert him, while Killarney continued to find the scores they needed. This fantastic team move finished by player coach Declan Wall, just a number of excellent efforts in the third. And by the buzzer it was Killarney ahead by 16, and more importantly showing up on the Super League table with a hard-earned home-earned win.
Right, Declan, I suppose that's a definition of a tough home win, is it?
Yeah, we knuckled it down in the second half really, and we fought through it. They're the kind of games you need to win, going forward. We kind of set our sights after. I suppose we got better performance in the last 2 weeks. We got better as the weeks went on, so we kind of set a training this week that we'd knuckle down and try and get this first win on the board.
The game itself was a steady game. You had a good first quarter. You kind of edged ahead there at half time, but you still needed a few big scores to kind of push ahead and take command.
Yeah, I suppose we got a few big threes, and I suppose we pushed away with maybe 10 or 11 points, and we kind of held on to that. That was important. I kind of stressed to the lads, you needed to get a lead so that it kind of knock them off. But if you kept them at 4 or 5 points, they'd stay in the game in the fourth quarter, and then you're in a game with the last 5 minutes. So we didn't want that. So in the end, we kind of pulled away, and it was kind of comfortable in the last 5 minutes really for us.
And it's a Super League win at home, which obviously is important. You're off and running now. I mean, this surely will help you gather a bit more momentum, will it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's always important to get your first win. I suppose we had 2 first tough fixtures on paper. So yeah, we look forward to 2 weeks' time now. We play Neptune away. So we'll be looking to get another win there if we can. Yeah, we feel like we can compete and do well up there as well.
And finally, just an assessment on the players and the performances of the players. You must be happy, surely?
Yeah, overall, I think a good defensive team performance. Like, I suppose, again, the first half I wasn't happy with defensively. We gave up 42 points, I think it was 43 points. So, defensively, as a unit, we played very well. Offensively, then we made big shots. Sariaga, Francis and Thomas did well down the stretch as well. They made some big scores. So, positive night.
Well, absolutely positive after running, Declan, and we hope we continue the performance of the season.
Thank you.
And that, of course, was Declan Wall wrapping up that one. Now, the other game that we covered at round 3, of course, was St. Mary's Castle Island. They had got off to 1 win on their second game, of course, at home. And they had 2 games in round 3 and round 4. And here's the report on those. Proved to be a busy few days for Garvey St. Mary's in the Miscoat.ie Women's Super League, with round 3 and 4 for Liam Cullity's side, seeing them playing 2 games in just 2 days. Having won their opening home game in round 2, hopes were high that the Kerry side could secure another win. However, a heavy defeat on the road at the hands of DCU in round 3 meant that the stakes were high once again for the newly promoted side, who welcomed familiar faces Trinity Meteors. Both sides have met previously in Division 1, and both sides were promoted to the Super League together. Despite poor away form, the home side have always been difficult to beat at the Castle Island Community Centre, and a decent crowd showed up on Bank Holiday Monday to cheer on St. Mary's. And it was a great start by them, with Leslie Davison once again finding the scores when put clear. This 2-point shot putting her on the road to 25 points. Some good early work too by Rhiannon O'Shea helped set up this score as she cut in from the side, with the impressive Deirdre Gainey adding the basket. O'Shea was involved once again, providing the space for Davison to fire them 6-2 ahead. And it was Davison once again with this monster three that put him 18-11 ahead in the first quarter, as they took a 23-11 lead at the end of the first. The Dublin side reduced the lead in the second, and despite getting to within a point, scores by Leisha Walmsley and Lorraine Scanlon saw them 38-35 ahead at the break. However, having clawed back a one-time 14-point deficit, the Dublin side took control midway through the third quarter as they hit 13 points without reply to leap into a 53-47 lead, and from there they stretched it out to 12 points with 4:30 left in the quarter. Still, the home side refused to throw in the towel, and once again Gailey finished with this basket. And with just 1:37 on the clock in the final quarter, it was back to 6 points before Davison set up a grandstand finish with his excellent three-pointer to raise the roof. It just left 3 in it with 50 seconds on the clock, but it was the Meteors that solved the game, adding one more point from the free throw line by the impressive Dana Flynn, who ended the game on 14 points.
It's a very unforgiving lead. I suppose you learned that here to see it.
Yeah, look, tough result. We played very well in patches. We started brilliant. We got a good lead in the second quarter. They came back at us a bit, and we gave up some soft baskets that we normally don't. So that's stuff for us to work on. We came right back into it at the end, and we even had a chance at the end to come back and win it. We learn as we go. There's things I'll take from it, there's things the players will take from it, and bring it into the next game. We've National Cup next weekend now, so we got to be better.
Yeah. I suppose the one thing was you left the lead slip, the lead got big, but you did claw back. We got back to 3 points, we were 37 seconds, and the game was still there to live really, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the girls fought really well, and I'm very proud of their efforts. I think just we have to improve defensively. That's our main goal to take from this game, and once we do, I think we'll be in a chance most games in this arena because we play very well together here.
Big cup game next weekend?
Cup game next weekend, yeah. Obviously we played them yesterday, so we know what they're like. They're very physical, they're very strong, and look, we'll give it our all and we'll give it our best and see where we land at the end of it.
Now, that was the league action, of course, round up. Now, this weekend, of course, or last weekend gone, it was all cup action, and the first team in action, of course, in the Pat Duffy National Cup, of course, was Tralee Warriors. Now, they got through to the quarter-final of the Insure My House.ie Pat Duffy National Cup after overcoming Trade House Central Ballincollig 74-66 at the Tralee Sports Complex last Sunday, and this is a quarter-final meeting with Mike Cullen at the same venue, which will be on the first weekend of December. Now, the clash of the top two in the Southern Conference promised more than it delivered in terms of quality, but cup ties are for winning, and John Dowling's Chargers can now look forward with some confidence to a National Cup quarter-final date with Mike Cullen in Tralee in 4 weeks' time. Again, Tralee Gary Warriors winning out 74 against Trade House Central Ballincollig 66. And of course, there was action in the Kingdom as well. In Killarney, it was a very historic weekend for all in Killarney Cougars as they hosted their first cup game. And we went along and we got some of the action. Limerick Celtics were the visitors to the presentation gym in Killarney on Saturday evening for the first round of the Insure My House.ie National Cup, on a big night for the home side Killarney Cougars, who were making their debut in the National Cup. Certainly one for the photo album and one for the club history pages. And the home side started the better despite giving up the first score of the game to Rory Cronin. The home side went on the offensive. Some good build-up play by Justin Tucson, Mark O'Shea and Tommy Bowler allowed Andrew Fitzgerald get in around the back for Cougars' first ever National Cup score. And it wasn't to be their last either, with Mark O'Shea winning this intercept. Before Tucson went airborne to nail his two and get a free throw for the bargain. It brought the Cougars bench to their feet. And they kept on the good early pressure, with Mark Green and Fitzgerald combining to add another score to see his side edge 6-4 ahead. With Fitzgerald winning the free throw, he pushed his side 7-4 up early in the first quarter. Having lost some of the early physical battles, the Limerick side called on a former St Mary's Castleisland player, John Gallivan. Gallivan, well known for his football prowess, helped to settle the Celtics into the contest as former teammates Andrew Fitzgerald was called upon to do the man-marking task. Gallivan soon made his mark with the first score of the evening after Rafael Lopez found him in space. Still, the Cougars went on the offensive, and this tremendous score by Tucson had his side 21-18 in front after a great three-pointer by Tommy Bowler, and it was another three-pointer by Bowler that saw them 26-24 ahead at the end of the opening quarter. However, the second quarter was a different affair, became a lot more physical, and Fitzgerald and Lopez got a lecturing from the match officials as things began to get too physical, with the Limerick side now taking a commanding role. Lopez added the free throws before he showed the way with a 2. Quickly followed by a 3 by Andrea Woodford as the Limerick side surged 53-40 ahead at half time. Having lost the second quarter 30-14, the Limerick side were equally as sharp in the third, winning it 29-14. With Galvin once again the beneficiary of this fine team move. Still, the Killarney side kept at it, and with this nice score by Jamie Fernandez, which was soon followed by another great score by Fitzgerald, Cougars did finish the quarter much stronger. Still, by the buzzer, it was the Limerick side that progressed on a scoreline of 101-78. Andrea Woodford was the match top scorer with 29, but another fine showing by Justin Tucson saw him end 26. Andrew Fitzgerald chipped in with 17, Mark O'Shea with 12, Tommy Bowler landed 10 points for the evening as well. Both sides will now head back and regroup, as the league action will continue with Cougars at home again this weekend, where they face Limerick Celtics for the second time in a week, as foes become friends once more at the end of this National Cup clash. Now, that was the report, of course, of Killarney Cougars and their first cup game. Now, the other Killarney side, St. Paul's, they were also in action, and they travelled to Castleisland on Sunday for a 4:15 tip-off. And here's their report, and see how they got on. With their home venue still being used as a COVID vaccination centre, it was to the Castleisland Community Centre that St. Paul's brought their Insure My House National Cup preliminary home game to, all decked out with its sparkling new scoreboard. Jared Lee's side, still to taste victory, had put in some credible league performances of late and were hopeful of a decent cup run. Portlaoise too, having lost to Carlow and Limerick Sport Eagles, opted for a little extra shooting practice ahead of the game, and it paid off early, with Luke Thompson getting the game's opening score. The Portlaoise captain was on hand to also get the game's first three-pointer, as the away side went into an early 9-0 lead. Scots finally got off the mark with the silky three-pointer by Emilian Gurdov. Then it was the turn of Canadian Ben Miller, who cut the deficit to half with this three-pointer. Rui Savari made it 12-9 with the Lakers' third three-pointer in a row before the big Bulgarian tied up matters with her fourth three-pointer in the trot to make it 12-all midway through the opening quarter. Despite this good run of scores, it was Portlaoise that took the quarter 22-16. Miller opened the second quarter with a 2, before his winning turnover was converted by Gudrov to reduce the gap even further. And then Miller was on hand once again with a big three, having defended this attack well. And the Canadian followed through to be in the perfect place to nail this three. In doing so, the Killarney side reduced the 6-point deficit and went ahead 23-22. However, it was the Laois side with Australian Nelson Larkins leading the way that regained the stranglehold on the contest. And at half time, the Laois men looked determined to hold on to their 45-32 point lead. And that they did comfortably, with St. Paul's scoring touch deserting them time and again in the second and third quarters. While they were caught countless times on the counter. By the end of the game, Portlaoise had hit the magic 100 number, winning out 100-72, leaving the Killarney side looking for the league for the rest of their season to find their first winning result. Next week they travel to Waterford to face WIT Wildcats before they finally head home on November 13th to Killarney for their first home game of the season with UCC Demons, the visitors. And that, of course, was the roundup of the National Cup for the men. Now, there was one team, of course, the ladies, they were out again, St. Mary's Garveys. And here's the report on their game. Team Garvey St. Mary's bowed out of the cup on Saturday evening last at the hands of DCU Mercy. The Castle Island side gave it their all, but DCU were the stronger side on the night. However, it was a much more improved performance by St. Mary's from when the sides last met a week earlier. Garveys defended well in the first quarter, but did miss some shot opportunities. Both sides were accurate from the free throw line, and the quarter finished Team Garvey St. Mary's 13, DCU Mercy 20. DCU increased their lead to 14 by midway through the quarter, while Paris McCarthy hit her first 2 threes of the game. The home side continued to defend well, and scores were exchanged throughout the remainder of the quarter, and the half-time score was Team Garvey's 24, DCU Mercy 38. DCU put the pressure on the third quarter. Their man-to-man defence held St. Mary's just to 6 points for the quarter, while the visitors hit 21, increasing the gap to a 29-point lead as the sides entered a low-scoring final 10 minutes. Final score again, DCU Mercy 66, Team Garvey's St. Mary's 42. So that's the wrap up of all the cup action, and I suppose we had 5 teams going into it. We have 2 still standing. Killarney, of course, getting a bye into the next round, and of course Garvey's Tralee Warriors getting themselves in there as well. So we still have plenty to look forward to in that. Now, another team who are getting ready to take to national action are, of course, the Kingdom Wheelblasters, Kerry's only wheelchair basketball club. And earlier this week, we decided we'd catch up and have a chat all about wheelchair basketball. And who better not to talk to about it than one of the players themselves, Johnny Quaid. And we caught up with Johnny earlier in the week.
I'm on the senior basketball team, but with the Kingdom Wheelblasters, I suppose it was set up 7+ years ago. There was 4 families came together in the Kerry area, and they started off with, I'd say, 4 to 5 kind of kids, and that's steadily grew throughout the years into maybe they have 16, 17 kids today. So I suppose for 5 or 6 years it was all a kind of a junior side, young kids kind of playing a kind of an inclusive sport. But kind of the word got out there then that would there be numbers there for a senior team, and would there be enough people around, men and women, around the Kerry area for would there be enough numbers for a senior team to kind of get together? We didn't really have an idea. Would we be strong enough to get into the National League here in Ireland? We only kind of got together as a social outlet first. to see where we were. But thankfully there was enough interest and strong enough players that we entered the National League there 3 years. Well, we're heading into our third season now, coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, absolutely. I suppose most people, are kind of exposed to wheelchair basketball when the Paralympics are on, I suppose, and you're watching it every 4 years, and you see the Americans and the Chinese and the whole lot. I mean, it really is a full rules basketball game. I mean, there might be a few subtle differences, but I mean, everything that goes on and on the main court goes on here as well. I suppose the people that probably don't see it, maybe explain some of the rules. Are they subtle differences? One of the things that, as I said off air, that kind of impressed me is that the ability to shoot scores, from kind of a seated position. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. A lot of practice goes into that, or how does that work?
Absolutely, but I suppose like any even able-bodied basketball, it all comes down to the ability of the player then as well. So not every player on a wheelchair basketball team would be able to get those great looking shots or long shots as well. It comes down to the ability of the player then as well. With wheelchair basketball, obviously there's a varying number of disabilities that are playing the game. So spinal injuries, people that acquired the injury, there would be a spina bifida. So there would be amputees playing then as well. So it all comes down to the ability of the player, but yeah, an awful lot of hard work goes into it. Every player puts in an awful lot of hard work, and every player has a strong job to do then as well. So like with any game, if one player is kind of slacking or not doing their full job, that will affect the rest of the team and then as well. So, but yeah, it does look great. It's supposed to be a non-contact sport, but if you see it there in the Paralympics, or if you come up to our training sessions in the Kerry Sports Academy any Tuesday night, you'll see it's far from a non-contact sport really. You would have to be tough for it,
Yeah, there's actually some fierce collisions in it, isn't there? I mean, obviously, I suppose in a wheelchair and the whole lot, and there's a few toppled over and back. I mean, that's all part of the game. I suppose you're well used to that now at this stage, are you?
Well used to it. We know how to fall then as well. Even though there's only kind of there's only 2 or 3 ways that you can fall really. You kind of go out on your face, you go back on your back, or you might tip over to the side. But all players are great. We're not out there to hurt each other, and if we can at all, we kind of catch each other. If we see somebody falling, we kind of catch each other if we're falling and things like. But yeah, it is very physical, and I suppose that's what attracts a lot of people to the game then as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and of course it's a national game as well, as you alluded to. There's a very, I suppose, it's a very homely or very unique way that they play the games. I suppose we might explain that where they all go to one venue and you play your own games there, as opposed to travelling all over Ireland, and you have your season, and obviously the games are competitive. You might explain that, and maybe if people want to get a chance to see it, where could we see the Kingdom Wheelblasters taking on some of the best in the country, and when will we have to wait to see it?
So the league is starting up on the 13th of this month.
So basically the concept in Johnny is that each club kind of hosts a round as such, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. All the teams will gather in Clontarf that weekend, and games start at a set time, and when you have your game finished, you can stick around, you can watch the rest. Obviously the next team that are playing after us, we could be meeting in the following weekend. So we're kind of we're doing a bit of scouting as well to see who are the danger players of what we need to have for the next weekend. So, but again, COVID might have it kind of changed in as well from what it normally was. Players might be able to kind of hang around and all of that as well. But I'm sure that WA will have that well looked after then as well.
Obviously, I suppose it's like any sport. I mean, there's a great camaraderie. I presume there's wonderful team, but obviously I suppose all the players share another unique experience as well with teams, and you get to know people, I suppose, from other clubs and other counties. There must be a great friendship involved, is there?
There is, because it's not just the kind of the sport aspect of it or the competitive aspect of it. These guys or these girls as well might have been in a hospital together, or the rehabilitation hospital in Dunleary together. They might have started out playing basketball, might have been introduced to them while they were in rehabilitation. So there's a connection between, I suppose, all the players. We all, I suppose, suffered hardship to some different degrees, really. So there is a great camaraderie, and we do genuinely get on. Even though we might get hot-headed at times, but again, all that kind of stays on the court, and we don't take anything personally. And we all look forward to seeing each other,
Yeah, and it's wonderful to have you on tonight, in fairness, Johnny, and it's great. I mean, there's a number of county league teams and there's a number of national league teams, and it's great, obviously, to recognise the Kingdom Wheelblasters as well, and we'll be covering you throughout the season. What would be the message that we'll say somebody's listening to us tonight and they're saying maybe they're not in the best place at the moment, and some person says, listen, after seeing this there, maybe you might want to get introduced, or maybe you might want to take it up, or maybe you just want to go out and have a visit, or maybe put in a phone call and have a chat or a conversation, because I suppose a lot of people are in dark places at different times, and this is a bit of light at the end of the tunnel as well. And like you said, there's a great camaraderie involved with it, and obviously people are competitive nature comes out regardless at the best of times, and you're obviously looking for new members. Where will they find you? Where's the training ground as such, and is it easy just to rock up, or must you put in a phone call, or how would we go find you, Johnny?
Yeah, so we train every Tuesday evening, 7 to 9, in the Kerry Sports Academy here in Tralee at the North Campus. And I suppose, well, I know I've been kind of down at times as well, and just going up the training, you come away feeling way better from it, because you meet people, and they might talk you around, you might get a laugh out of it, and of course there's the exercise then as well. And I have been talking about the physicality of it and kind of falling out of chairs and things, but that's not going to happen to you every time, and you don't have to be physical to play the game. If you wanted to be a social outlet for yourself, or if you just want to come to the training sessions on the Tuesday night, we're all kind of there as a group, and we're all enjoying it, and we all look forward to seeing each other. So we'd welcome anybody to come up, and not to be afraid of it. We all kind of started somewhere. So we're in the Kerry Sports Academy every Tuesday, 7 to 9. There's a Facebook page there, the Kingdom Wheelblasters. You can drop a message into that, and we'd only be delighted to make contact and to meet you if you want to have a chat beforehand. But the door is always open to anybody thinking about coming up.
That, of course, was Johnny Quaid, I suppose adopted Kerry man now. I suppose he from Ep.3 originally, just a couple of fields over in the Limerick border, but certainly very welcome Kerry man there. And he plays his basketball with the Kingdom Wheelblasters, and we'll be delighted to be covering them. They're home in January, and as Johnny pointed out, their league is 8 or 9 games, and basically what they do is they will pick a venue, and all the teams will commence to that venue, and then they'll play a number of games. So basically, it would be quite nice and COVID compliant, of course, in January, to get out and give them a bit of support. Another very, very good Kerry team. And as Johnny said there, give them a call if you want to have a chat, if you want to play, if you want to be social, if you just want to see them and support them, the whole lot. And amazing people with amazing stories, and I suppose putting into perspective too, that there's a lot more in the world than just sport. But fantastic people, and when we interviewed Johnny last night, we certainly went home with a good smile on our face, and we wish them the very, very best of luck. Now, another new man starting a new job is Adrian Flynn. He has flown in all the way from Scotland, and he's taken over in St. Paul's in Killarney as the director of basketball, or the director of basketball coaching, or it's a big long title he was given anyway. So we decided to catch up with him ahead of a training last week in Kilcommon, and we'll hear from Adrian now.
I think it sounds more glamorous than it is. My job is really to help the coaches to sort of support them, give them ideas about how to do things, how better to practice, how to approach games, how to help the kids, and give some ideas to the club just to see how we can improve things. And really it's about trying to come up with some shared ideas that we can use throughout the club, so there's a clear idea of like what to progress from, what to do with each age group, how to work with the kids, what's important for each age, and try and have kind of one way of thinking rather than have everyone do their own thing, just to help the coaches in that way.
And of course, Aidan, you come with plenty of experience. Ireland isn't your first protocol. Maybe give us a 20-second tour of the world with yourself.
Well, my background is I'm from Scotland, from Edinburgh, and I coached there for a long time in a youth club there, and coached all age groups, boys and girls. I had a short spell in Germany with a pro team, and then I also coached with national teams from all age groups, boys and girls in Scotland. And then the last 2 seasons I've been in Sweden, so coaching there. Again, a similar job to what I have here. So my job was head coach for youth development, and again, it was working with the coaches, trying to help them, find sort of modern ways to coach and help them progress the kids, come up with again a kind of not curriculum but a sort of pathway for the club that they were, we're doing the same ideas, the same kind of language, the same concepts, and I had a great time in Sweden. I really enjoyed it.
And of course, basketball is the same the world over. It's a court, it's a ball. It shouldn't be really different. But is there different basketball with different cultures that you've picked up throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simple sport. It's a ball and a hoop, like you say, and throughout the world, a lot of it's very similar. I've spent a lot of time in Spain and other countries and camps and different things, and in the States. So although like Scotland and Ireland are quite similar, and Sweden again, smaller countries where basketball's not the biggest sport, but every country has its own culture, its own context. In Ireland, for example, obviously in Kerry, Gaelic football is a huge sport and it's really popular, and that is obviously a challenge for the club, for having the players and having time for them, but also it really helps them in the way they play. And I especially see it in girls basketball. You see girls who are comfortable with contact and physical, and they like, they're competitive and they're good athletes. So that really translates well to basketball.
And I suppose you're here a couple of weeks. I suppose as the locals say, are you bedding in well? You've been at a number of trainings. From what you've seen so far, where does the job have to begin for you?
Well, so far it's been really good for me here. I'm getting to know the town. Everyone's been really friendly. It's a really nice place to be. Obviously, there's still some challenges around COVID and access to the courts and everything. So we've not had that much time on court, but I've been able to meet most of the coaches and do some work with most of the players. And I think, yeah, I mean, the challenges are the same everywhere. In a small country and where it's a small sport, no one has enough practice time. We need more coaches, we need more volunteers, so it's helping them. There's a really good volunteer culture here, but it's just about trying to find ways to help maybe the most ambitious kids, and to help keep players in the sport and make it as attractive as possible when there's so much competition with other sports. But so far it's been a really great time, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge.
And of course, talking about challenges, you're looking after, I suppose, every age group, boys and girls. Is there a difference in the sport between boys and girls?
Well, there is and there isn't. I mean, in general, there are differences between boys and girls, but really they're all athletes. They're all competitors. They're all doing the same thing. And so sometimes maybe some girls are a bit less aggressive, or a bit less talkative sometimes, or a bit less confident to begin with. But I notice a difference here, especially. I think the influence of the Gaelic games and football, especially. The girls here are smart. They're competitive. They're physical. Tonight I was working with the under-11 girls, and they don't have much basketball experience, but they've played other sports, and so they knew the ideas we were talking about. There's similar concepts in different sports. So no, I don't have any problem with them picking up basketball really fast. They're doing great.
You'll be learning quick. And of course, the Super League team, of course, tied on to this as well. I suppose they're Division 1 at the moment, Scots Lakers. Have you seen a few of those games? Have you hung around with a few of the guys in the training?
Yep, I've been at the first 2 league games, and so they're really good prospects. Jarlath's doing a really good job with the younger, really bringing in the younger players through the club. And so, yeah, they've had a couple of difficult games on the road, but they've got a lot of talent, a lot of potential for the year. So I think you'll see some big improvement.
You've obviously been around, I suppose, Sweden and Germany and the whole lot. How does that club game compare to what you've seen here in Kerry?
Well, so far, what I've liked about the clubs I've been with in Germany, Sweden, and here is that they have a full pathway from the youngest kids all the way up to senior basketball. And in Scotland, we don't tend to have that. We only have one professional team in Scotland for men and women. And so here, it's really important to bring the young players through and that they have that first team to aspire to. So although the level here may not be as professional or as rich in some countries, that our young players can play in the National League, can play in Super League in different clubs. There's a good standard of senior basketball here for young Irish players, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose there's one thing that under 11 and 13 and 15, it's a pathway to inspire themselves to play at national level and ultimately probably international as
exactly,
well.
Yeah.
You've had a bit of experience yourself at international level. You've been with the Scottish setup.
I have, yeah. I've coached national teams with Scotland. My first job as a head coach was under 18 women, and that's how I actually got to know James Weldon that way, by coaching against him, and that connection led to me coming here. So I've coached boys and girls, different age groups from under 14 up to under 20s and seniors, and I've learned a lot from that. I've really enjoyed, being around the world, being in different countries. Challenging yourself against other coaches is really important. And so, yeah, hopefully I've learned a lot from that, and it comes into my work here.
And finally, you haven't got the Kerry accent yet. You're hanging on to it.
Not yet, no. I'm told I don't sound Scottish enough, so we'll see if I pick up the Kerry accent. I'll see how long I'm here for.
Well, we'll check in later on the season, and we wish you the very best luck with St. Paul's, and hopefully you'll be successful in everything that you're touching to.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
And of course, it was Adrian Flynn, the Director of Coaching with St. Paul's in Killarney, and I suppose the softly spoken Scottishman is working on his Kerry accent as well as his basketball as well, and absolutely delighted with him in the club when we caught up with him. Now, another man from Killarney via Lithuania has taken up another very big role with Basketball Ireland Southwest under 14 coaching boys, and he was pretty busy during the midterm as he was on a talent ID over in Motherwell school, and we caught up with him as well after he was training, and that of course was Coach Ignis of Killarney Cougars and now of Basketball Ireland Southwest, and this is his interview.
It's all very quiet now. The last 4 hours weren't very quiet. What was going on here today?
So we had a Southwest Basketball Ireland Academies going on. Today was a trial day for all the kids who wanted to come over and kind of show off themselves for us, for myself and for Kelly. And so yeah, basically.
And it was a very big attendance. I mean, it was just in the hall a few minutes ago, I suppose, only standing room, a lot of boys under 14, and they're from Limerick and from Kerry, all over.
Yes, they were all around Kerry and Limerick. I was expecting to have more than 60 kids actually from the list I received, and I was kind of shocked with the numbers when I saw that, and I was like, okay, I never dealt with this amount of players, but we had today only, I think, 40 kids, so it was a little bit better. I think it's more quality when you have less players. You can do way more drills, and yeah. So I was happy with the numbers.
And ultimately, it's an ID event in a sense. I suppose you're pre-selecting for a program probably higher up. With what you've seen, though, the level, were you happy with it?
First of all, I think this is the future of Irish basketball, and I think Kerry has a lot of talent in general in terms of basketball players, and I'm really happy they brought this idea here in Ireland and Kerry to kind of work with this age group and developing them once a month. I think it's very good start and foundation for the future under 15s and under 16s, and you kind of guide them to the right direction for the national teams, for example. And today, yeah, we were just pretty much focusing on skill stuff, adding some mini games, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-2, stuff like that, but most of the stuff was just skill development and trying to see on what level they are actually at the moment.
And I suppose it's very hard to judge the level they're at, because obviously, some have a bit more skill, some are better at shooting, some are taller, some are a bit more combative. But what would you have been looking today in players going forward?
At first, like I said, at the first point, what you see is probably on what skill level they are. Like you mentioned before, some players are better at dribbling, some maybe better at shooting, but we're trying to kind of see a bit of both. Of course, we're trying to see the physicality. Are they tall? If they have maybe long arms, big shoes, for example, that means they're gonna keep going and getting taller. And those small things, I think, the physicality, the skill level, how do you engage with the teammates, how do you want to listen to me, because I have a few players who are very talented. You can see right away they're a few steps ahead, but at the start of the practice they were kind of acting a little bit funny and they're trying to be cool. So we kind of pulled them away and said, look, we know you're good, we can see it right away, but it doesn't mean that you being talented, you be selected for this academy going forward. So we kind of changed their mindset, and I think it flipped it over, and they started working hard and actually showed up the leadership.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you wrapped it up, of course, you used a very unusual sentence that don't be heard often. You asked them, did they enjoy the day? Usually, I suppose, with talent ideas, it's about getting into the next round and that, but enjoyment really is part of what is
I think in general, in this age of group, if you coach professional basketball player, it goes more to less fun into more you have to work and you have to build up some certain things. With youth level, yes, we work, we build what we want to build, but at the same time we want to keep them happy, because the more happy they are, the more engaged with the drills with myself as a coach or Kelly. So we try to kind of keep the right balance. Who knows me, I'm pretty tough on my players, and I pull them out right away and I say, look, I don't like this and that. But at the same time, I try to keep a nice relationship. So they want to come over in November for the next training session. So that's what's our plan.
Yeah. And of course, you are a very busy coach. I mean, you obviously are Cougars as well. I suppose an older age group. Is there a different way to coach a senior team than there is looking after under 14s, or is it basically all the way?
It's completely different. Trust me, because last 5 years I was focusing only on men. So all my notes, everything I looked online or I talked to my friends or from my past coaching, it was more based on men's basketball, which is more details, offensively, defensively. Youth is development, you building foundation for the future. So you have to make sure you're not making mistakes on selecting the drills pretty much. So the whole basic is completely different compared to men's, but I love it, I enjoy it, and I think this is something where I want to go more forward, helping the Kerry basketball to grow. So I think it starts with underage level. So it's also improving myself, not improving the kids, but improving myself and my knowledge.
Absolutely, every day is a school day, Ignis.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that, of course, was Coach Ignis, of course, Basketball Ireland Southwest under 14 boys trainer, coach, I suppose. And he's all around. And Iblis support there with Kelly Ahern as well on that day. Real interesting guy to talk to. Loves his basketball. And certainly, I'd say people are in good hands with him there at the under 14 level. Now you are watching the Kerry Basketball Show, brought to you by Kerry Sports Hub. And if you like what we're doing, and we're doing it now, this is program 3. Why not give us a like on our Facebook page, or why not contact us on Twitter, and we're also on Instagram as well. We'd love to hear you. And I suppose over the last number of weeks, certainly the support we've been getting from clubs and individuals has been absolutely fantastic. And if you've got a story, get in touch with us. kerrysportshub@gmail.com. It's not just for national teams, it's not just for big coaches, it's for anything at all to do with basketball, community games, under 12s if we get back onto it, veterans, masters, county league, whatever it is, or if you're living next door to some legend that really needs his story to be told, or somebody really needs to find out a little bit more, why not just drop us a line and we'll get onto that. And we certainly are delighted to be bringing you the best of basketball action in Kerry. And we've got emails from America and France and Bulgaria and the whole lot over the last number of weeks, and that is certainly fantastic as well. And we certainly here in Kerry Sports Hub will endeavour to bring you the best of the publicity that we can on the Kerry Basketball Show. Now, there is a man that we wanted to interview for an awful long time, and it just fell by accident that on the day of the championship launch, Colleen Duffy found Ricardo Leonard, and sit back and enjoy this for the next 10 or 12 minutes, because he was the original legend of the Tralee Tigers, and this is going to be 10 or 12 minutes of real enjoyment. The Ricardo Leonard interview.
Had 4 or 5 years, especially in Tralee, when the Warriors, when Super League came back to Tralee, the standard and the just people coming together and enjoying the basketball, it was like they were missing it. It was something they were missing, a part of their soul that was missing, and they quickly came back, and the fans quickly came back on board. We probably get some of the largest crowds in the country. The players, even from our academies, our young academy, we started in St. Brendan's. We started our academy last week. Huge numbers, Imperials, Warriors. They're coming out in droves. People want basketball. People want to be active, and and the kids are there. The talent is there. We have the coaches, and people are just looking forward to playing basketball.
Talk to me about some of the talented players you've played alongside over the years, kind of, and who are some of the standout players that you've played basketball with here in Ireland that stand out for you? I mean, there's so many, I'm sure.
There is so many. I mean, and luckily enough now with the emergence of the Masters, I get to still play with some of those guys. It's a great weekend. We have the Masters tournaments around the country. But to name a few, you're talking about the Jerome Westbrooks, whose family is involved in basketball now. Ed Randolph. Oh man, Dior Marsh, who's still playing. Lenny McMillan. And then I players that in Johnson, Irish guy, Michael Quirk. We were just kind of playing something in the other night, trying to keep active. Kieran Donaghy's been around a while. I'm still trying to get Garth McGuire to play in the Masters with me. He's there. Scotty Summerskill. I mean, we can stay here forever and go on and on about some of the guys. And as I said, I'm fortunate that that I'm still big active and playing in the Masters and able to play along and still meet up and catch up with some of those guys that have really been trailblazers for basketball in Ireland. We still get together. Obviously we haven't for the last year, but we're looking forward to the next one coming up in November in Galway. They're putting on a kind of a one-day thing in Galway just to kind of kick us off again for the upcoming season.
And basketball is a sport which can keep people going and fit and playing for a long, long time, as well, as you mentioned with the Masters. And it's good to see that side of things develop, both with the men's and the women's as well, because everyone's still well able to play. We talked before we done the interview, you're itching to get back into some sort of basketball. The spirit and the drive is still there in all players, regardless of age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, when you look at the Master Circuit, like even pre-COVID, it's funny how we talk about things pre-COVID and after COVID, but pre-COVID, the Masters, when you look at the age groups, like over 40, over 50s, over 60s, men's and women's, and we're playing, we're enjoying it. It's a way to keep fit. It's not only a way just to keep fit. It's the social aspect of it all as well. We get to catch up and meet up with players that we played against. I enjoy the fact that I can play, as we said, you talk about some of the players that I played against. But I enjoy the fact now that I can say, look, I like to play with these guys now. We're older. We can, we still have that competitive itch that we need scratched every now and then. But it's great to be able to play with them. Guys that you looked up to, or that you like. Oh, he was a nice player who you battled against. You can battle with sometimes. As a guy in America, Gabe Jackson, who played in Belfast Star. Guys they still come back from America to play just for the weekend, for a couple of days, visit, catch up with people. And again, I think more importantly, the social aspect of it all is good. Than that we're we're maintaining those connections, and everybody's kind of still involved in basketball.
Yeah, the friendships through sport, you certainly, you can't but say that's one standout point. Obviously, people like to play, people like to win, but friendship is good as well. And between friend and foe, they may have been a foe on the court, but friends afterwards for life.
But I think that's always been a part of the game. I mean, maybe it's an Irish thing as well. I mean, because like when we come here, like that was part of playing. After the game, we'd all meet up, have a bit of finger foods, have a few one or two drinks after the game, and socialize. We just battled on the court, but afterwards, we're all friends. We all have to go. Most times nowadays, we all have to go to work the next day or the Monday. But it's time to, we be social, we be friends, and we all go out. We have a nice time until the next time we meet up on the battlefield, which is the court. But and it's the same with the Masters now. Just as I said, I can't overemphasize the fact the social aspect of it is just as important as the basketball aspect of it. That we can battle on the court, but off the court, we remain such good friends. I'm such good friends with a lot of players. Like I said, the Garth McGuire's, the guys from Demons, Adrian, and all those guys. These are the guys I want to kind of play with before I can't play anymore. I've watched them, I admired their skill sets and all, and I'd be like, I'd like to just lace up the boots a couple of times with these guys instead of against them, and have a bit of fun.
We talked a lot about the social aspect there. What about the competitive aspect when you were involved? I'm sure a lot of big nights, big games, places like here, Cork, all over the country. I'm sure there's some memorable nights to stand out for yourself.
Oh yeah, there's loads of memory. Again, too many to mention just one, but there's always the competitive side, especially for myself. The competitive. I was a competitive, very competitive, as some referees would say, would attest to. But that's a part of basketball. You come out, you want to give it your go, you want to win, you want to do everything you can to win, and you just leave it all out on the court. And again, when you do that, the fans appreciate it. When you leave it all out on the court, the fans appreciate it, your teammates appreciate it, the club appreciate it. And I think, I think one of the reasons why, like for myself, that I'm hopefully well liked, and people still recognize me when I walk down the street in Tralee, and they everybody be like Rick, and I be like, how does he know me? Like he's too young, and and you have people coming up to you that are in their 30s and 40s, and like when I was 12, and make you feel real old. When I was 12, I used to go watch you, and you were an awesome basketball player, and I mean like, geez, have I been here that long? I feel real old, but that's part of it, again, especially in a small community like Tralee.
I suppose they're like touching back on games for a second as well. There would have been a lot won over the years as well, a lot of successes, and how, I suppose you touched on a little bit there, how it inspires the next generation as well. Success breeds success. Yeah. And certainly across Kerry in basketball terms, it's been a lot of success. There's been a lot of good memories, and that's spurring on the next generation. I mean, some younger players are around here today, and they're playing because of the likes of you guys as well, and that must bring great heart to keep you involved, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like I came, and for me, I always work with young kids, work with kids as a social care worker, whatever I work with. So, me helping the next person was always kind of in me, even before basketball. But when you talk about success, I mean, like in Kerry through basketball, then you have the GAA, obviously, up the kingdom. Okay, these Dubs think they had a good run of it for a while, but that success, and then when you have the crossover between basketball, GAA with Kieran Donaghy, and some of the other Tommy Walsh who played basketball, and all those guys, they see, and the young people see that, and they can see that they can play both sports, and there's a crossover in the skill set from basketball to GAA, and both sports are highly thought of in Kerry. I mean, like, there's been great success in both sports. So when you see that, and we have the fan base coming in Tralee and in the complex, and they see you in town, or you're running a camp every summer, and I do camps. Kieran Donaghy does basketball camps. Fergal O'Sullivan does basketball camps, and they're packed out during the summertime for kids. And when you look at that and you think, okay, when you say the first sport in Kerry would be GAA, but when you look at the summertimes and you can see the basketball courts are full as well, it only inspires, as you said, the next generation to keep going, to keep playing, and it kind of inspires me to kind of get back involved. Like, I was out of it for a year or so, but the guys asked me to come back involved with St. Brendan's. Then I got back involved with the Warriors, and so look, it's all about keeping on, keeping the next generation inspired. And at the moment, we needed that bit of inspiration because of COVID, and the parents are crying out for the kids to get involved in something. They've been sitting at home, most of them, for a long time. So now they're crying out for us to get involved, and they're coming out in their droves to get involved in basketball. And, look, we're hoping for another successful year with Warriors. The fans are hoping to get back into the gym. The kids are hoping to get back in and get behind us and get excited and get motivated to get back in the court. So, look, that's what we're here for. I love it.
The international teams, and it's great to see them starting to come back in, and more of them as well in terms of an Irish sense. More Kerry players on Irish teams would be great for the future of basketball in the kingdom. I mean, obviously your son and a few of the guys getting scholarships abroad, and that's the start of maybe getting more up to that international standard as well.
Yeah, well, we had obviously we had on the men's side, Owen Quigley represented Kerry, represented Warriors there on that bit. Last year, again pre-COVID, last year when Ryan was home, he had his men's senior international cap with them, and I think we have a few other young players. Hopefully in the next couple of years that will progress. I think overall the county was represented pretty well at underage internationals. So hopefully they'll kick on and move up the ladder. As like I said, my son did. He played under 16, he went under 18, under 20, and then moved up to senior level. So juvenile and youth level, there's been good representation from Kerry over the last couple of years, and we hope some of those guys then that went away and played will have an opportunity to come back and represent their country as well at senior level. So they've gone away and gaining great experience in America, that they can bring that experience back and represent Ireland, or even come back and represent Warriors as well, after they finish college, or whatever they're going to do. So hopefully in the next couple of years there will be some more representation on the senior men's team from a Kerry perspective.
And that, of course, was the great Rick Leonard, legend. And when he starts talking about names like Jerome Westbrook, Dior Marsh, and Ed Randalls, it really, really brings you back to the 1990s. And He really is one of those real nice men. You can walk up to the street in Tralee and start a conversation. Well known, great to see him back, and great to see him actually talking about there's always a bit of a niche competitive wise. Probably not so great him saying that Kieran Donaghy is getting close to Masters level, particularly after his fantastic performance in the Cup, but it is coming down the line as well. Now, that is our show this evening. We want to thank everybody for helping making it happen, all the people that facilitate the interviews, and of course Colleen there getting the interview for us as well at the end. You have been watching the Kerry Basketball Show every Tuesday fortnight. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Kerry Sports Hub, give us a like. Again, as I said, if you need to get in touch with us, give us a drop a line, get in contact with us. We are also now on Spotify, so you can catch us on podcast as well. And we are, of course, on YouTube, and you can catch up on that as well. Tonight's guests, as I said, were fantastic to have on. Johnny Quaid of the Kingdom Wheelblasters, John Dowling earlier in the evening, Tralee Imperials, Rick Leonard to finish with, and we also had Adrian, Flynn and Ignis as well of Cougars. My name is Donald Barry, and it's been a pleasure to be with you for the last hour, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time.